Welcome to the Catholic Cafe, where Catholic truth is served fresh daily. We've made you a reservation in the luxurious corner booth, so come on in and see what's on the menu today. Now, here's your host, Deacon Jeff Drzymski.
Greetings and welcome to the Catholic Cafe. I'm Deacon Jeff, sitting in the luxurious corner booth of the Catholic Cafe. We have successfully been through the holiday season, these beautiful holy season of, well, the seasons starting with Advent, moving into Christmas, and then wrapping up with the feast of the baptism of the Lord, and it's just been a beautiful, beautiful experience for me and my family. I hope you guys all who are listening had a great holiday season, and also we're happy that Tom Dorian has.
You sound relieved.
Venerable, yeah.
You sound relieved today.
No, I'm rested.
You're rested. Okay,
I'm rested.
That's a good word.
I am blessed to be to work at a place that gives us a lot of time at the holidays.
Yes.
Right. So a week before Christmas, and then up until early January, and so it's like. It's amazing what a little sleep does. I mean, it's just really, and not having
to recharge your battery.
Yeah, my batteries are recharged. That and Chex Mix. You put those things together. But then we got to start dieting here.
Well, and plus all of your Christmas sweaters are green, which means that you can ride them right into ordinary time.
That's exactly right. Yes, it's exactly right. Put the purple away and get out the green. And so you just heard the voice of Ziggy Rodriguez.
That's me.
I'm so glad you're here. And we have Venerable Tom as always.
Yes, sir.
And Venerable Tom, you weren't here while we were interviewing
Brother Dylan.
I
missed him.
Yeah. Well, you got in
brothers.
here, and your microphone was like really short.
He's
not as tall as you. We'll just say it that way.
That's okay. You know what? Some people are vertically challenged.
Not everybody can be as good as Venerable Tom. Not everybody can be as venerable as Venerable Tom.
Yeah, I hear you.
There probably are some that are, but we're not going to go there. That's a whole other show. So what are we going to talk about today? One of the things that happens over in this period between Christmas and New Year's, every year typically is, or every other year, how often they do it, is the Fellowship of Catholic University Students has this big gathering called Seek.
Yeah.
Wise men still seek him.
You've been to that, haven't you?
I have been. I went in San Antonio, and it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you, if anyone is ever thinking like, oh, there's just no hope in the church, just nobody is looking bad, and everybody's all these old people, and I've fallen into that trap sometimes, thinking like, what in the world is going on with our church? And it just doesn't seem like it's got any vim and vigor, no future. You can feel that way, right? You can get really weighed down. I think Satan's at work there, some just making us feel that way. But when I went to Seek, I was blown away by a bunch of college-age people gathered, and we're talking about over 10,000. And when you have over 10,000 people, I don't know if it's the same numbers now.
It's actually this year it got as high as 24,000.
Okay, so because I was at Adoration one night, with like about 12,000 of my closest friends. I mean, it was just incredible. And you cannot come away from that. I mean, I actually got very teary a couple of times just in adoration. And it's like I'm sitting there thinking like, silly me thinking that there's no hope. And for some reason, there's all these younger people here. And it just made me think like, in fact, I remember recording an episode of our show after we got back and thinking hey, if you're ever worried that there's a future that you're the last one, you're the last Catholic on the earth, right? That's the way you can feel by yourself, and you feel like, well, I guess I'm the only one going to Mass, and I'm the only one that believes this, and I'm the only one that feels this way. And the reality is, if you start to feel that way, go to Seek.
Oh yeah, and I tell you this also, and I was blessed to go to the Seek conference this year.
This is the long lead-in to say you were just there.
And I've been there a couple of times in the past, where I went to an SLS in the past and a Seek in the past. But SLS is another conference that Focus used to do. And one thing I'll say before I talk about this Seek, the closest thing I've ever seen in my life, you're talking about the enthusiasm of the youth for our faith. The closest thing I've ever seen in my life to those old videos that we used to see of teenagers chasing after the Beatles, in the 1960s when the Beatles first came.
Did the
with
Beatles
British
show
invasion.
up at Seek?
Well, in the form of Father Mike Schmitz, I will say the closest thing I've ever seen was when Father Mike Schmitz was trying to make his way through. This was back in Indianapolis. Seek, just these college students were just like mobbing the guy, and I thought, it's funny because
he is like a Beatle with a better haircut.
Well, John Lennon said, "We're bigger than Jesus." You know what I mean? Like that.
Father Mike Schmitz would never say that.
Father Mike Schmitz would never say that, and in fact, it's just a wonderful thing to see college students go crazy for somebody who is literally in persona Christi. So I just wanted to throw that in there, and that in itself is a sign of excitement. There are people who raise critiques about various sort of, do we want celebrity culture in the church and stuff like that, and I understand those critiques, and I've discussed, I've raised those critiques as well on this show. But at the end of the day, seeing young people excited, over the moon, because this person who's in persona Christi, who has brought the gospel to their hearts, is a beautiful sight to behold.
I like to think though that there's a difference because they're, I like to think that they're, we'll call their stardom, or the people that are enthralled with them and flock to see them. Yeah, it's really about the content. Yeah, like essentially, it's like a 5-star restaurant. They go there because the food's good.
Right.
It's good. And some people can go there because I ate it at Chez Tom. And it's like, and maybe they'll brag about that or whatever. But the reality is, it's only going to be in existence for as long as the food is good. And so Father Mike Schmitz is going to be a star as long as he's really bringing the Jesus.
Exactly.
Right? And that's what's important. And the second thought I have is some of these great historic sites in the church, whether these beautiful basilicas and cathedrals and churches built on the graves of the martyrs, they're built there because of the popular pilgrimage that was made to that spot.
Right.
That they erected a church on that spot where this happened, or where that happened, or this home, or where the Last Supper. What all these churches are there, in these places, because of what took place there.
Yeah.
Which you could say is that's like star stuff. I want to go there where the thing happened.
Right.
Right? And I want to see, I would imagine people flock to see St. Paul.
Oh, sure.
Or hear St. Peter.
Right.
Right? And one of our saints is Golden Tongue. It's a name. So it's like people were drawn to this, but again, I like to think they were popular, maybe the wrong word,
right?
But they were well listened to and heard because of the content.
And one thing I can also say about the Seek conference and about Focus in general, it might have been that some of the students signed up to attend Seek, because they had stars in their eyes related to, I want to see this or that celebrity, et cetera, et cetera. But
it could have been going for the wrong reason.
Yeah, but here's the thing. But Focus is such a great organization, and Seek is such a great conference that whatever reason those people showed up, they were brought to Christ during the course of that during the course of that conference, and whatever sort of affection they might have had for this or that speaker during the course of this, for anything other than our Lord, I guarantee you that the thing that left a mark upon their soul was our Lord.
The 5-star content.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally the spiritual food that they're receiving. And you know what? That sentiment about what you're saying is so true. And I've used that particular line, but a little differently, by inserting the letters RCIA in it over the years.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people that are basically, raise your hand if you're getting ready to get married to a Catholic.
Yeah.
And that's why you're here. Mm-hmm. And their hands go up. Because there's there's a draw for people sometimes. And Tom, you said for the wrong reasons. And you're right. Mm-hmm. It sometimes that's not the reason you want to become Catholic. It's just because your spouse is Catholic.
Right.
But I see it, and the way I explain it to them is I think the Lord uses these opportunities, and you are going to have things revealed to you that are going to be transformative.
Yes. And
9 times out of 10, it is.
And that convert spouse might end up being the one who becomes the stronghold of the faith in the family.
100%. There's 100%, because I've seen a lot of times where the one who is the Catholic, I have to kind of convince them, well, you need to go too.
Right.
You don't just need to drop them off and you go shopping or doing whatever. while they're at class, because you're already Catholic. This is not about making Catholics.
Right.
It's about transformation. If you're getting ready to get married to that person, then the Catholic person needs to be there supporting. And I promise you they'll learn something. Now, this was a very long introduction.
It was.
And maybe we don't have time to talk about what we were thinking about talking about. But while you were at Seek, there was a particular talk, and you probably had lots of talks that you went to and lots of things that inspired you, but there was one particular you'd mentioned that it's like we should talk about.
Yeah, Rachel Kalaki from Magdala Ministries. She blew me away. It was really a talk for the women. And if we have parents, if you've got young people who are listening to the show, you may want to exercise
this
some
might
discretion.
be a time because we're going to talk about some more adult topics coming up.
Right.
And we're not going to get crazy, but we are going to talk about things that we don't. Some people don't want to have their kids listening to.
And I'd heard Rachel Kalaki before on Pints with Aquinas, and frankly, back then I was like, I want her to be on Catholic Cafe one day. And so I slipped in to see her speak, and she runs Magdala Ministries. And it's a very important place in the church. It's a ministry that helps. She's a Catholic young adult, I think in her 30s, maybe her 20s, and she helps women who struggle with pornography, with masturbation, with stuff that a lot of times it's taboo to even acknowledge that women have those struggles too. Mm-hmm. And frankly, it took a long time for the church to really step up and give real resources to men. And one of the points that she raised was this is an issue that now has become a big spotlight issue, but it's still a spotlight issue for men, which a lot of times when women have those same struggles, they feel like they're all the more ashamed and embarrassed because I'm not supposed to have this struggle. It's a man thing, and
that's right. Because the quintessential images of like the creepy guy in the trench coat. It's not a creepy girl in a trench coat. I mean, all through the 40s, 50s, 60s, the guy hanging out in that back alley and stuff was like it was a guy,
right?
And guys in a particular way struggle with pornography. And we've actually covered this topic a little bit when we had a guest named Tiffany Leeper, and she worked with GAP, Girls Against Porn. It's actually now called Girls Against Porn and Human Trafficking because that's become so devastating. But she was talking about the fact that data shows that at least 25 of girls that are 25 and under, like 80% of them have experienced or used pornography.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a really scary statistic,
right?
Especially for like a guy, and because I look at that and go like, we guys try desperately to impress women, and we want to make sure we brush our teeth and our breath smells good, and we don't burp and we don't do other things in front of ladies when we're courting them,
right?
And that because we feel sometimes about ourselves, maybe it's not a healthy feeling, but we feel that we're kind of like we don't deserve that woman who we put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Right. And so we want to put our best foot forward, as it were, in that situation. And then, but when you find out, like, because we might see ourselves in a cesspool of sin sometimes.
Yeah.
And guys definitely struggle with that. And you just look at the statistics, and it's a huge problem, especially with pornography. And the thing is, like, when you hear those numbers, like that 80% of young ladies under 25 are experiencing or using on a regular basis, or it's like, okay, so now the problem is, like, if the women come down into the cesspool with us, who's going to lift us up?
Yeah.
Right, and that's from a guy's perspective. That's scary. You may think that's a chauvinistic or whatever point of view, but to me, it's like I look to the image of purity in my wife. And it helps build the chastity in our relationship. Mm-hmm. And I hate
your
to think,
reverence for her purity and her virtue.
Yes,
yeah.
And so this is a problem, and I think this Magdala, who are they?
Magdala Ministries.
And
you don't have to be local to them. They have support online, but they also help people set up support in their parishes. But and really though, that's not the reason. And I do recommend that site for anybody who is interested in this topic. But this particular topic is not actually the thing that caused me to want to have an episode on this topic that I'm proposing. It's something that she said at the end of her talk that just blew me away. And I talked to her afterwards, by the way, and she said that that quote wasn't original to her, but
did she tell you to step back? That you were just getting too. You were just like looking in her face, and you were like all excited.
Well, I was pretty excited.
Were you a fanboy?
but anyways, what she said at the end of her talk was that and this applies to everything addiction wise, not just things like pornography and masturbation. She said that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is intimacy with God.
Yeah, and I would imagine that.
She dropped the mic, I'm sure.
Yeah, it blew me away. And by the way,
did everybody in the room pick up on that?
Well, I did conduct an interview. No, I think you could tell that everybody in the audience, there was a fairly huge audience, was pretty blown away.
That could be a whole talk.
And that's why I thought it could be a whole episode here. And by the way, before we dive into unpacking that, one thing we should say is there might be some people who have a picture of addiction and where they say, oh, well, addiction is alcohol, drugs, gambling, and when those things really start ruining your life and they're out of control, it's those really extreme situations, that's what addiction is. You know, if you listen to Bishop Barron, for example, he prefers to define concupiscence, which is common to every human person, as addiction, that we keep turning to things that are...
It's an unholy and unhealthy desire for things that are not God.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, concupiscence is that draw to everything but God.
Yes, exactly. And so, which is exactly why the opposite is not sobriety. It's not just about it's not just about saying no to that thing. It's about saying yes to God, to relationship with God, to say whatever it is I'm using this thing to fill whatever hole I might have in my heart, so to speak. That hole is a God-shaped hole, right, that we have in our heart, and it can only be filled with God. And if we don't step into that intimacy with God and invite God into that space to crowd out that bad, and also to heal the underlying root causes that bring about the addiction, because a lot of times these addictions and these persistent sins. And really, I mean, even if you find yourself saying, well, I don't think I'm an addict or have an addictive personality, but if you've been going to confession for the past 10 years and you've been saying the same thing every single confession and it never has changed.
Might be an addiction.
There might be some kind of an addiction that, in that regard.
Now, I know a lot of people have, because I've actually recently listened to some podcasts that started talking about addiction. And they were just like things that happened to come up in these different podcasts. And I heard a couple of times talking about addiction, that some people view addiction, and a very common way to view addiction is as a disease.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, they didn't agree that it was a disease. They thought of it more as a human condition. And it tied to the concupiscence, right?
Right.
And I'd always thought, like, well, you could call this a disease.
Yeah.
Right. The problem with, and again, I'm not an expert in all this stuff, but as I think about it, maybe that's dangerous that I'm thinking, but as I think about it, I think if you call it a disease, it's easier to start to go like, well, what's the cure? And then it becomes like it's a state of functioning and process. And if I just take this pill, or if I just fill that, the need that comes through addiction. Like, in other words, if I can just get sober, if I can go cold turkey, right? And some people choose to stop smoking that way, or stop drinking that way, and there are things like that. And then some people see, like, if you're addicted to certain drugs, there are medications, and there's this drying out process, and there's these things that happen to your body, and all these things that are very physical. But it kind of like takes the psychological out of it, to some degree, or you can. And so I would rather see addiction as like this, from a holistic perspective, as answering a fault in our psyche, that can lead to a chemical addiction, right? But it's a physiological process. So, in other words, it's not just like, and it answers what you just said. I may be going crazy here and saying all this stuff, but what you're saying is, like, Rachel was telling you, or saying to the people there, that the addiction, the answer to addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. That's not enough, because if you have, let's say, an addictive personality, if you're going to dry out on the alcohol, you have to deal with the addictive personality, because that addictive personality is going to want to seek out something else, right, to cling to that may be unhealthy, and then sometimes you cling to things that, like, well, I read the Bible 63 times last week, and you start going like, well, wait a second, that doesn't sound normal. The Bible's good, but wait, something else. Are you like addicted to the Bible? Is that possible? And you start to realize that this is a real big mess. And that's why I love when you told me, she said that the opposite of addiction is being in relationship with God.
Yeah, I mean,
because that changes everything in your life.
That changes everything, right? I mean, and the fact of the matter is, the devil can pour glitter on anything on this earth and try to distract us and turn that into an idol and help us mistake or cause us to mistake this place that we have here on earth as our destination. It's not our destination. This is just we're on a pilgrimage. Our destination is heaven. Yeah. Right. And the devil wants to distract us and say, no, your home is here, and this is where you need to put your focus. Right. And that's how anything can literally become an idol. But the thing that ultimately draws us to those idols, we talked about Father Mike Schmitz earlier, and he gave a homily years ago that really touched me, where he talked about the difference between the fruit and the root. That when you're wrestling with persistent sins, when you're wrestling with addictions and stuff like that, we have to ask ourselves, is this the root? Or is this the fruit? And almost always, when you're talking about persistent sins and addictions and stuff like that, they're more the fruit, and you have to get underneath it all to really take a look at the root. And a lot of times we're afraid to do that. Yeah,
it's exactly right. And I do want to make sure that we do have an opportunity to say this in the show as well, that we recognize that there are a lot of problems in society. We recognize there are a lot of folks that are undergoing a lot of really dark and hard and difficult challenges in their lives, that there are lots of folks, perhaps even listening here, who have addictions. And I don't want to downplay any of the therapies, the treatments, the things, because obviously if you're struggling with anger, if you're struggling with alcohol, if you're struggling with drugs, if you're struggling with pornography, I mean, yeah, ultimately you need to, those things need to be out of your life.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it's not the fact that they're just out and there's this still a hole in your heart that needs to be filled. At least when you recognize that, and I love how you said it was a God-shaped hole that's in your heart. That's the most important thing. That once, and even if it's a medicinal or some kind of therapy that you're undergoing and you're in a doctor's care, that is awesome. That's a great step. But don't let it end with just sobriety. Don't let it end there. Let Jesus transform your heart,
right?
To enter your heart and make you the you that you were made to be. Right, to help you become that. And I also love, Sam, how you've pointed out that our destination is heaven, right? And our destination is not like the absence of sin in our life. It's the presence of God in our life.
Yes.
Right? And so, that involves the absence of sin. But that process to be absent of sin, the most important part about that is like, well, what's filling that place that's not just going to become another sin, another attachment.
When we're saying no to sin, we're saying yes to a higher good. We're saying yes to the highest possible good. We're saying yes to God and the good things that He desires for us. He desires for us to be in right relationship with one another. He desires us to. The things of the earth are not bad. He created the earth and called it good. He wants us. He created every human person and called it good. He wants us to receive those things and the people in our lives and ourselves in communion with Him, and be in receive mode, not take mode. Receive mode in Him, with Him, through Him, in thanksgiving, and in a rightly ordered way, and a God honoring way. That's how he's that's what the work of grace is, to be in our lives. And when He asks us to fast from things, it isn't saying, oh, you need to just stop doing this thing altogether forever. It's more, we need to moderate these things so that we can grow in virtue, and so that we can encounter one another, encounter the things of the world with virtue, and grow in virtue by and through our encounters with them.
As we start to move through ordinary time and essentially into Lent, you mentioned fasting, and again we've done shows on this, but the idea of fasting is not just getting rid of things in our life, but really getting rid of attachments, right? Letting go of attachments, letting go of the things that like don't want to be let go of.
Right.
The things that are literally glued to us
Right.
or grasping onto us, and some are worse than others. But the reality is that's why, Holy Church asks us to fast or to let go, especially during a time of Lent, of spiritual purification, where we are now, what is the focus? Where are we focused? Where are our hearts? How can we be transformed by Jesus if we are, quote unquote, satisfied, at least we think we are, by all of these worldly things? And the reality is, until we get rid of them, fasting is an opportunity for us to say, like, wow, I never realized just how attached I was to Diet Coke, or how attached I was to whatever. And it's like you start realizing, well, Diet Coke's not a sin. Yeah, but it's an attachment.
Yeah.
And if you drink like 23 a day, there might be a problem there.
Yeah.
Right? And that problem is not that you're drinking too many Diet Cokes, is that you're not finding satisfaction in your relationship with Jesus Christ.
Right.
I know that sounds like pretty simplistic, but honestly, kind of really is. Mm-hmm. Love Jesus because Jesus loved us first.
Right.
Right. And when we recognize that in our lives, when we experience that in our lives, then what Rachel was talking about there with Magdala Ministries, support that group, because there's a lot of people that are struggling. Right. There's a lot of young ladies that are struggling in this way. Not to mention all the guys that are also struggling in these ways. And it's like, this is why, we don't want Satan in our lives. We don't want to allow all of those things to lead us away from that ultimate goal, which is heaven with God for all eternity. And so that's why it's important that we see all these things in this kind of balance, but understand that Jesus loved us first. Jesus wants us in his arms, and that we need to be invited into that. Let's ask the Blessed Virgin Mary to help us in this quest. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Thanks for listening to the Catholic Cafe. If you'd like to contact Deacon Jeff, send him an email at deaconjeff@thecatholiccafe.com. Visit us on the web at thecatholiccafe.com. You can also find us on iTunes or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The Catholic Cafe is brought to you by the Order of Malta Federal Association. Join us again at the Catholic Cafe, serving up salvation one cup of coffee at a time.